like I've mentioned many times, I normally don't draw stuff out. It's all engaged in dialogue and talking. So this has been good for me, you know, um, just to kind of and everything that I'm showing you, it's a morph of existing tools that are already out there. Three circles. And I don't know if you guys have heard of any three. Uh, for Mike Shipman, it was a movement amongst cousins, Muslims in Southeast Asia, and in a tool that he developed in conjunction with a couple national partners using what's called the first and last sacrifice stories. So going from the garden, the first sacrifice in the garden, through the Korbani, the last sacrifice that Jesus did on the cross for us. So this is kind of a morph of a couple different gospel tools, and I've added a couple things in. So I mean, you'll find presentations out there, but they're all a little different depending on the context, and that's one of the key things is you want to think about your context and who you're trying to engage, and having your go-to gospel tool is great, but you always want to be thinking, okay, Lord, according to this context, how am I going to adapt? You never adapt the message of the gospel. That stays the same 100% always through and through. But who am I trying to reach? Who am I having this conversation with? How can I make it more applicable to their settings and help them better understand or find that better bridge into the gospel, into a better understanding of Christ and what he came to do. So, when I was out with Brendan a while back in Ilford, and we met a Pakistani guy. And Brendan, I don't know if you remember that conversation, but I used the first and last sacrifice stories with Brendan as I'm sharing with this Muslim. Just asking him, just asking him specific questions, and number one, where he's from, and then, oh, are you Muslim? And I already knew the answer to that, knowing where he came from, because of his dress and those kind of things. And then just finding bridge questions into getting into spiritual conversations. And some of those bridge questions are, number one, just like, hey, are you a Muslim, or are you a Hindu? But in this context, we're talking about Muslims. So like, are you a Muslim? And most of the time it's easy to see if they are, depending on if they're Bengali, their beard, or the way they're dressing, on a Friday, their dress. And you're just trying to strike up natural conversations with people to try to see if they're open to deeper spiritual conversations. And one of the questions that I like, or a statement that I begin with when I'm talking to Muslims is, I've been thinking lately just about a question that I've been wrestling with. And you mind if I like ask your opinion on this question? And something that I've wrestled with in my past is how do I become right with God? Like how do I have my sin debt removed? And like, what do you think about that question? How do you have your sin debt removed? And then just allow them to answer that question. And if they're Muslim, almost 100% of the time, they're going to go into the 5 pillars. Brendan, I don't know if you remember, he's like, I pray 5 times a day. And then he said, I don't beat my wife. I fast. I mean, this is the normal questions that any Muslim would ask or would respond with. Like, I do these things in the hope of, and I even asked him, I said, sir, do you know for sure that these things? He's like, well, I hope they do. I hope they remove my sin debt, my pop, my sin, in Urdu, sorry. So you're looking for, just like you do in any normal barriers entry strategy, you're looking for the the next signpost that says that, wow, this person is open to deeper spiritual conversation, right? So depending on how they answer, and most Muslims, secular or devout Muslims, will give you a variation of the same answer, just the 5 pillars, and so from there, you're just listening and just, you're affirming them. You're like showing them that you're listening to what they're saying, and then bridging it. Hey, can I show you something? Can I, because I know you're saying you're hoping these things, because no Muslim will ever say, I know for sure, ever, not one. They'll always say, I hope that Allah, I hope that God will accept my the things that I'm doing to allow me to be in right relationship with him. I hope that he does. And that bridges into a natural conversation or a natural segue to, can I share with you why I know for sure that I'm in right relationship. So that bridges us into this. So everywhere you look, you see brokenness. You see pain, you see suffering, you see hurt, you see war, you see hatred, disease, broken relationships, just devastation all around us. And it doesn't take long to when you start to look at your own life, my own life, I realize I struggle from the same things. I'm a broken person. But the reality is that was never God's design, ever. God, from the very beginning, he had a perfect design, a perfect plan. Now, he created everything around us, the heavens, the earth, the stars, the sun, the trees, everything that we see, God created. And that was that in the beginning, he had a perfect place, a garden, and where he had created all of the animals, and all of it was just beautiful. It was just the way that God had designed it. But God's ultimate creation was humans, Adam and Eve. And you can use the Arabic Adam and Ava. You can use the different ways as better bridges, but for this one, we'll just use the English words. So God's ultimate creation, the pinnacle of everything that he created was man and woman, was Adam and Eve. And he walked with them. He was in perfect relationship with them. Perfect unity between God and Adam and Eve. It was just the way that he designed it to be. And in the garden, God created a tree and said, Adam and Eve, do not eat from this tree. And Adam and Eve disobeyed God. And the one act of disobedience, just one act of disobedience, broke that perfect relationship, broke that unity. One act of disobedience did that. And because of that disobedience, God told them they had to leave that garden. And they entered into brokenness. And from that very day, all of us are suffering from the acts of the one act of disobedience that Adam and Eve did for us. And ever since then, humans, we have tried to find our way back to God. And some people, they pray. Some people, they live generous lives in helping the poor and those that are struggling in life. Other people, they fast. They try to treat their, other people, they do their best to just be a good person and to treat their families well and to not cheat and to not steal and those kind of things. And And all of this is with the hope that these things will bring us back into right relationship with God. But all of this is out of a hope that these things will happen. But God gives us certainty. He gives us a clear path for being brought back into right relationship with him, for correcting that error of disobedience and knowing for sure that we can have right relationship with him. And he tells us how this is through the prophets. Now, if we think back to the garden, we think back to what happened when Adam and Eve disobeyed God. What was the consequence of that? Immediately, they recognized that they were naked. They felt shame. They knew that they had dishonored God, the one that they loved the most. And immediately they went and hid because they felt ashamed. And they tried to cover themselves, to cover their shame. And what was God's response to them? Let me see, it's a better place so you can see better here. He killed an animal, the first sacrifice, and he took the skin and he made clothes to cover the shame of Adam and Eve. So we see from the very beginning, and something had to die in order for the shame to be covered. All right? And even very soon after that, the sons of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, they went and they offered sacrifice to God. One offered a grain offering. The other offered a perfect lamb, a blood sacrifice. And God accepted the blood sacrifice and rejected the grain offering. Soon after that, God put the great father Abraham to the test. And just as Abraham was about ready to sacrifice his son, God said, "Stop." And Abraham looked up, and there before him was a ram that he then sacrificed for the blood offering that God required. Right? Soon after that, the great prophet Moses, God had called to go to Egypt to set free the people from slavery. And God sent many, many plagues to try to open the eyes of the Pharaoh, of the king of that country, to let those people go. But the 10th plague was that the firstborn child of every household would die. The firstborn son of every household would die. But God had told through Moses to the Israelites that if you offer a lamb and sacrifice it and cover the doorposts of your house, sprinkle it with blood from the sacrifice of that lamb, the angel of death will pass over and your house will be safe. You'll be covered. So we see this pattern of sacrifice, the requirement of blood sacrifice for the covering of sin. Without blood sacrifice, there is no forgiveness or covering of sin. Still yet, King Daud, God told him that an ancestor of you, even though you are a great king, but an ancestor that comes from you will sit on the throne of heaven and he will reign forever as the eternal king. And that was a prophecy that was given to King David. Many, many, many years later, the prophet John the Baptist, Yahya, he came proclaiming the kingdom of heaven. And he said, there was one coming after me who was before me, who I am not worthy to untie his sandals. And he will be called the Lamb of God. And then shortly after that, John the Baptist says, look, the Lamb of God is coming, who will take away the sins of the world. Who was John the Baptist talking about? Who was Yahya talking about? He was talking about Jesus the Messiah, Isa al-Masih, that he was the perfect Lamb of God, that he came down from heaven and he lived a perfect life, a perfect and holy life, never once disobeyed God. He performed many, many miracles here on earth, showing that he had power. And the greatest miracle of all is that he, being the perfect sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice, the Qurbani, the last sacrifice, he gave his life for us to cover our shame, to cover our disobedience. And after 3 days, he rose from the dead, proving himself that he had power over sin and death, that he was the Lamb. And then Jesus said that if anyone would turn from living their life their way and would follow him, that he would restore them back into that perfect unity, that right relationship with God. So we see that this amazing picture of how the world was, how God wants it to be, and that if we believe in what Jesus said, that if we believe that if we turn from our disobedience and trust him and follow him, that he brings us, restores us back into right relationship with God. And Jesus says in his teachings that we live in one of these two places. We live in this world of brokenness, or we live in God's perfect design, in unity, perfect unity with God. Where do you live? Where do you reside? So that's a real basic, just, I know you've probably noticed that I didn't say Jesus is God. But the thing is, you use this bridge of first, last sacrifice, the terminology that Jesus is the Lamb, the ultimate sacrifice that covers us, covers our shame, as a way to get into deeper conversations. I've found if you immediately come off and say Jesus is the Son of God, Jesus is God, that will slam the door shut. So, but this is a way to open it, because they deeply respect Jesus. He's one of the greatest prophets in their mind. This is a bridge that gets you into those coffees, those deeper conversations, to where you can then begin to proclaim the deeper truths of the reality of Christ. And who does Christ ultimately say that he is? But so I mean, there's opinions on that, but for longevity in conversations and the ability to build relationship, I feel like this is a good way to see if those doors are continuing to open. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah, it does, Mike. It does.
But it's simple. It's very much just 3 circles, just with adding in pictures of from the beginning to the end. of why did God require the sacrificial system?
Mm.
You know, ultimately it's like it required death to cover the shame and the guilt. And Jesus was the ultimate, the last sacrifice for that payment, that ultimate covering of our shame, that disobedience that brings us back into right relationship.